Welcome to the grim, lawless 23rd century, following the fall of U.S. Gov and mass depopulation of major cities at the hands of the multi-trillionaire de Huberton family. Baptized in radioactive hellfire, a rare mutation makes Turbo a fiercely pumped scrapper, haunted by specters from her past, surviving the post-apocalyptic wasteland one deathmatch pit fight at a time. But when she rescues the stunning trophy girl, the unlikely duo are thrust into a harrowing odyssey, evading marauding berserkers at every turn on their way to the ultimate showdown as they uncover the horrific truth behind the fall of humanity.
All right, good morning, Jake, and welcome back from Florida.
Welcome back. Yeah, I was back for a couple of days. I got back on Sunday, or maybe late Sunday night. But yeah, the IC3 Jacksonville happened. It was I do have some video, but I guess I have to like email it, unless I just show it on my phone. I didn't. Yeah, what's up? No. So yeah, on my Substack, I did a little walkthrough, and then Matt Sardo just like stopped me right in the middle of it live, so it's all on there. Yeah, so welcome everybody. We are making a sci-fi post-apocalyptic thriller comic. It looks like this. We just reprinted it. And I have here in front of me all of the iterations that we have so far. If anybody wants to keep track, this was the first 6-page teaser we put out. And I think Kurt was the only one that printed this.
Yeah, it was all hand printed.
Hand printed, right? And it's only the first 6 pages. And we have a cover and a back cover. And this original art is for sale. I have the not the pencil. I have like a pen, an inked version of this, and then you have the gray version and in an actual tangible form, right, for sale. And then the inside is the first 6 pages of Turbo Pit Fighter, #1. Later on, we put this out, and again, this is Kurt's version. So this is now the 12-pager with 2 pages of material in the back. This is when you switch the face. I think you switch back to the other face on another version. So there's like face 1 and face 2 for Kurt's. Right. Well, I'll show that in a second. So this was the original face, and then I was like, well, the nose is a little wide. It doesn't look like Turbo. I don't know how it came out like that. And then I gave you a different face to add in. So you printed this originally with this face, but then you reprinted this, I guess, when you ran out. And so now it's on white paper. And the difference with Kurt's is that he always has the margin on the sides, and I had mine trimmed. And this was the first one I put out, and this was my first job going to mix them and getting some stuff printed. I thought the cover came out kind of light up here. So when I sold out and I reprinted it, it looks like this. And so now it's a little bit darker all around. And I remember how much I made. I made 40 copies of this, sold them out, and then I made 40 copies of this, which I just have now in stock. So that's the deal, and nothing else is really different. And people should know that on this guy's shirt in the background, there's nothing, and on this one, it has 40 really light on it, 40/40 on there, to remind me how many I printed. Then we printed Doom Magazine #1. Actually, we also printed Pearl White Malady #1 for the show. I sold a bunch of these, This I didn't sell any. I gave a couple away in trade, but I didn't sell any of these. So these are available for sale right now. And this Doom Magazine #1 has the next 8 pages of Turbo Pit Fighter. You can see right here, Turbo Pit Fighter. And we are also premiering the Casualties featuring Esoterra, Hellclaw, and Cremita, and in a 6-pager done by Ken Landgraf. And then we also have the 11-pager of the Duke done by Alex Turbin, plus all this extra material in the back, such as the 2-pager for Cremita that you see here, and this fascinating back material with the new bullet point list, and some pinups and some other pages. We have more pages than we ran, actually, but this is going to be Kurt's cover. I think, Kurt, you said you were going to be taking all the pages and printing and then making your cover on a slightly different version, right? Yeah, I got. Yep. Yeah, the main mistake that that I made putting this book together is that we have this little credit box here for the Alex Turbin sequence, written by Jake Jacobs, and pencils, inks, co-scripting Alexander Turbin, inks and tones by Kurt Bruegel. We didn't do that for the first 6-pager, and so the only way people would know this is Ken Landgraf is if they saw his name here on the end of the sequence. After the 6-pager actually ends, there's a turbo pinup where his name is prominent here on the bottom. But we really blew it. I really blew it, and we should have included that. So I'm sure you fixed that before you went to print. Yeah, so that's this is available now. I also I kind of overdid it. The paper stock, I think I got 100-pound paper and like 70 or 80-pound internal paper. Way overkill. Doesn't need to, it's not really that floppy this way. It's a nice product, but I wouldn't do it again. When I reprint, I'm going to fix all these problems. I have a list of I found a typo, all this kind of stuff. But here's Doom Magazine #1 for the edition, and I printed out 66 copies originally. Pearl White Malady. I also did an unboxing of this video. It's on Substack, and this is the project that I work on with my students. And this goes back more than 10 years. We've been working on these pages, and they're all amazing full color pages. So all these things are for sale now, and yeah, this is an interesting project. So one thing I want to get your sage advice, and I also want to talk to Matt King, and he's also kind of a good advisor, for people who have questions about what the hell to do. But I think I want to do a Kickstarter for Malady, Pearl White Malady. I think I want to try my hand at that, because
That's a great idea. I think you have to have your own opinion of it. Living by somebody else's opinion, I think, is just basically.
Well, it's more like I think I definitely want to do it. I think it's more about when, what to offer, all this stuff, because I've never done a Kickstarter before.
Yeah.
And I think one of the Coates brothers has a Kickstarter on there right now that I was about to order. So I did create an account finally, and for Kickstarter. But yeah, the good thing about the Kickstarter for me is that it's not only completed, it's printed. All I got to do is just, list it, take orders, fill it, and then, what I'd really like to do is I'd like to offer the original art page by page to people at a certain tier. So I have ideas like that where
Sure.
a physical copy is bundled. Like one tier is like physical copy with a digital copy. I don't know why you would want a digital copy if you have a physical copy, but you could also get you could buy it with a copy of Turbo. You could buy it with a copy of Doom Magazine. You could buy it with a copy of original art. A piece of original art. So those are just my ideas, but we'll talk about that later.
The only thing that I want to just state from my side of things, since you don't have a a website that is shop ready. In other words, it has the security certification, and it's not a WordPress website. The moment that you start selling comics through Kickstarter, that's then your website.
Right.
Okay.
Or you could also have a copy permanently for sale on eBay or Etsy. That's another option.
Exactly. I mean, it's not a positive or negative. It's just how much time, how much energy do you want to put into said website or Kickstarter? That's just my thing. My thing is if the comic book is done, then sell it on your website, do a bunch of promotion, which you're gonna have to do anyways, whether you're on Kickstarter. It's not like people are just gonna show up because and buy because you're on Kickstarter. It's just that kind of balance that I play out, for myself on there. So.
Right, that's the kind of advice. That's the kind of advice that I'm talking about, and this goes for anybody listening. Use Kurt's advice. He's thought through a lot of this stuff for a long time now. So before I even got to the convention, they have these sketch cards that they hand out like crazy, and everybody they look like this. It says IC3 2026, and then everybody draws on them. And some people sell the sketch cards at their table. They even have these little ones here. But and then they gave us a whole bunch of stickers and a map and all this stuff. But before I even got to the convention hall or my hotel room, there was an Ollie's nearby, and I stopped into Ollie's because I was in a strip mall. And Ollie's, as everybody knows, it's like a discount store. And they have comics for sale. They have $5 used comics for sale in $5 bundles. It's $4.99. Yeah, so I grabbed a bunch, and somebody had ripped the whole thing apart. They opened all the. Is the Ghost of Christmas Past there? Is the Ghost of Christmas Past there, rattling his chains? Okay. So I picked out. So I cherry picked because somebody had opened all the $5 bundles and just had all the comics just loose sitting on a shelf. So I got here Death Dealer. I got here an Elf Quest. I got Antarctic Press, Exciting Comics. I got Fire and Ice, Necron, #1. I got a Grimjack, which has a beautiful cover of it on it. I got this one, Lion Maru. I had to get a 5-pack of So if I was down to 9, I had to grab another one. And so I'll add these, I guess, to the comics that influence that we'll do when next we do it. Then I get to the con. Everybody's setting up early on the Friday before the Saturday, and this dealer set up And there wasn't too many $1 comics there that I saw. I saw one guy had like 6 boxes of $1 comics. So this guy had set up $2 comics. Everything was $2. And with that, you know, a lot of the comics are worth more than $2. A lot of them are worth less than $2. You know, they just had maybe like 60, 100 boxes. It was crazy. The whole guy's setup was just $2. Everything was $2. So I had plenty of time after I set up my table, and I went over and looked, and I bought some $2 comics. But what did I find? Lo and behold, was a whole run of Vampiroticas, which you don't usually find in dollar bins. Sometimes you find them in dollar bins, but like the later numbers, and sometimes you find Brainstorm comics in dollar bins, which I find all the time. But in this case, Vampirotica, the whole run, including number 1. So I got number 1, and I'm not trying to say that these are great comics, but I bought number 2 because I wrote a story in it. And I also bought number 10 and 11 because I wrote stories in here too. And I kind of just let the other ones go. This was a company, Brainstorm Comics was a company run by a guy out of North Carolina named Kurt Lindo. And, you know, he was doing like some, all kinds of different comics. He was doing some adult comics. He was doing some like, you know, black and white indie stuff. And then he told me, Jake, one day I just came up with this name, Vampirotica. And I put it in Diamond's preview catalog, coming soon, Vampirotica number 1. He had no idea what he was going to do, but he had just put the title in, and he got back like 3,000 pre-orders just based on the title alone. I might be remembering this, you know, some of these numbers, you know, a little bit off, but like, or maybe it was even more than that. But, you know, but he told me like, boom, he was off and running. He had a budget, and now he needed to throw together. He had 3 months to throw together the comic, get it printed, and deliver it to Diamond, among others. So I was like, oh, wow, all right. So he enlisted me to write. I had taken my course with Denny O'Neil. I was ready to write some scripts. So I wrote a script for Vampirotica number 2, and he paid me $6 a page, which I guess is fair because his company was really nobody and nothing, and I was nobody and nothing. But this is my first writing in the comic industry. This was like 1995 or 6 or something like that. And then I wrote, I don't know how long after, but he came back to me. I wrote 2 more stories for him. I think they're 8-pagers. And one of these, he made, folks are not going to believe this, but it's true. One of my stories he made into a movie, a straight-to-video movie. And I think he told me that the budget was like $2,000 for the movie, and like I'm remembering some of these numbers wrong, but he was like, maybe it was like $5,000, but like, you know, 1,000 of that was he had to buy one of those new bubble iMacs because he made the whole thing on a bubble iMac and a camcorder. And then he spent $1,000 getting this beautiful buxom actress who was like a B movie, or not even B movie, like a C movie screen queen. And then all the other actors were just like friends and guys from the neighborhood and everything like that. And the movie really looks like that. And that it was called Tales from the Blood Vault. And he used the framework was a story that I wrote called The Vampire Queen, where these mobsters are in the movie business, and they're in trouble. No, these 2 guys are in trouble with the mob because they're in the movie business and they have a movie due, and they owe money to the mobsters, and they need to put this movie out. And so they're doing like the casting and like the interviews or the screen whatever they call it, screen what do they call it? Screen test. Oh, sure. So the screen test, right? So the whole thing is they're doing the screen test, and the woman is supposed to play a vampire in this cheesy B movie that these two knuckleheads are doing. Here it is right here. Some of this is a little mature. But this is, I mean, some of this artwork is nice. They have, but some of it is just like, okay, these are like kind of indie comic artists for hire at the time. And, Kirk Lindo had a pretty good run with Vampirotica, and the stuff got out there. But now it's mostly in the cheap bins. But here's the thing, and let me see where I'm credited. It was called Lights, Camera, Vampire, and the pencils were done by Steve Likens, okay, and inked by Steve Hauk, and I have no idea who these people are, and so yeah, I get a copy of this. This comes out in 1995. I get a copy of this, and I'm like, okay, this is a version of my script. But little did I know he was going to make a movie out of it. So here we go. It shows like a Times Square scene, and this cheesy guy with a toupee is putting together this movie. Hello, Phil. It's me, Sammy. Listen, babe, I've got a gold mine on my hands this time, and Krolnick, Sammy Krolnick. I used to manage Daisy Denton. Hello. So this guy's working the phones, and he's got this script in his hand called Blood-Sucking Vampires in Heat. So then he gets a knock on the door, and it's these two mobsters. Time's up, Sammy boy. Hand it over. And he's like, listen, I got the greatest script right here. And he was like, another porno movie, Sammy? Don't you ever give up. You haven't had a hit in 10 years. You're all washed up. So they're like smacking him around. They're putting a gun in his face. The art, yeah, the art here is a little cartoony, but he was like, you got 48 hours. He goes, anything you say. So he's got 48 hours, and so he has this casting call. And it's got all these bimbos here, and it's that funny kind of scene where you see all these, women, and they're not right for the part. He was like, Fenwick, we've been at this for hours, and we haven't found our vampire queen. How many more of these toothless hags are there? And he's like, about a dozen. And then he turns around and he sees this gorgeous vampire queen. I would like to audition for the part if I'm not too late. So she's auditioning for the part, and then she actually bites this guy's neck, and he falls down. And he's like, I got to hand it to you. You really showed me something there. Really convincing. Fenwick, get rid of this no-talent alcoholic wretch. Like the guy's knocked out on the floor here. And so he goes, gee, boss, I can't believe you got that gorgeous chick to sign off on that contract. And not only that, she signed away all her royalty rights. She's going to be the biggest thing in porn since Sika, and she's going to make me rich. So I guess this is like I thought this was like a low-budget B movie, but I guess this is like a low-budget X movie. And then there, he's going into the coffee shop. Make your move now. Hey, my news van. Oh, so they stole a van in order to make the production. So they're really like living on the edge. And now the production's here. They're in a graveyard. He goes, okay, my dear, you've read the script. Basically, it's a few quick lines and then a you-know-what scene. The cue cards are over there. Fenwick, get ready with the smoke machine. So they have this actor guy, and they're going through this stuff, and then she, oh, man, so she goes down to service him. And she drains his blood, and he falls aside. And now it's scene 2, action. And two guys are discovering the vampire queen in a coffin. And it's getting a little softcore here. But she kills both of them, and he's got it all on screen, on camera here now. Then we're getting here. Geez, what is it with these guys? Must be some bad drugs going around. They're all just like dropping like flies. And then he says, "Oh, Mr. Cavallo, I'll have your money. I have a real find here. This new chick is unreal." So Fenwick knocks on his door, and he finds that all the actors are dead or they're sucked dry. I've got to tell the boss. And then the girl attacks Fenwick, the helper guy, and now he's all alone. He goes, "Sure thing, I won't disappoint you, Mr. Cavallo, right away." And then Fenwick, where's Fenwick? They're all missing. God damn it, I'll do the scene myself. Where's the costume? So, cameraman, try to get my best side. Ready, roll him. Hey, baby, I hear you're a vampire or something. Yes, I am. So they're doing the scene. His toupee falls off right in the middle, and just then the cops bust in. We have a warrant. We have reason to believe there's stolen camera equipment is on the premises. Nobody moved, so the movie guy says, "I got to get out of here," and he escapes, and he shows up. He grabs the camera and he shows up at the mafia guy's office. Going somewhere, Sammy? No, just the guy I'm looking for. So now they're in front of the Godfather, and he's going, I know that you want your money, but you got to see this film. It's the most unbelievable footage ever captured. And the mafia guy goes, you better hope so, eh? And then they're showing the film, and he goes, now wait a minute, there was a girl here in this scene. And the guys are like, should I rip his chest out now, boss? Wait a minute, where is she? I just shot that scene an hour ago. I swear she was there. She turned into a bat and flew away. I'm telling you she was there. So that guy gets his, and outside you see the vampire queen flying around the window. And so that little 8-pager became a straight-to-video collectible. And when I saw the movie, I bought a copy. I don't even know where I found it. But years ago, more than 15 years ago, I think, I bought a copy of the movie. I watched it. I couldn't get through it. It's the worst movie anyone's ever seen. I'm sure Linda would admit that. The worst ever. Like, oh, it's terrible. Like, can't even get through it. And my name is nowhere on it, which was a relief. But it just goes to show you, like, if you have that's Hollywood. If you have a catchy name like Vampirotica, and you get some hack guy to write your script like me, you could actually turn that into a movie. So that's my report. The other stories I did were 8-pagers. One was called Friday Night Charlie, and one was called The Miracle Baby, about a girl that's adopted. But all of these stories are like erotic vampire stories. So maybe not my finest moment, but my first job, my first script job, in comics. And then I ended up doing some pencils and inks, and I got published. Then I put out my own stuff. So, all right. When I was tabling, this guy comes up to me. Ty, his name is Ty Mengus. Super nice guy. We had a long talk. I think we traded comics, or maybe not, but we could have him on sometime. And he has a lot going on besides the comic. I forget his whole story, but he makes Eat Me Pizza Boy, Ash Can. This is an Ash Can interlude, and I think he said he put out other comics. He calls this company Barge Format Comics, and I forget where he was from. I think he was from somewhere in Florida. And he's got these other people that he works with. So, looks like cool, interesting stuff. Black and white, indie, interesting format. So, more investigation needed. Ty, if you're watching this, reach out and let's get in touch. I think we have his Instagram here, or we have an email for the company here. And this guy I spoke to at length, and his wife is really nice. And but unbelievably, they came all the way from Portland, Oregon to Jacksonville. He was tabling. He had some really nice comics, really nice art, really nice stuff. And he also is like a super friendly guy that like volunteers, that is like local, community centers, and he does art classes with kids and all this great stuff. The wife was telling me he's been putting out stuff. He's been putting out his own stuff. So he had his name is Dave Castor, and he had a couple of comics that he put out. I think he had like at least 3 or 4. And so he's been doing this for a while at a pretty high level. I traded him for She That Kills the Dead, and this is number 1 from 2015. So this is a long time ago. And his company is called Czar Star Studios. So I want to get this right because he is totally down to come online with us. And even though he's in Portland, it'll probably be a little early for him. And to plug his stuff, to talk about his company and all that. So, yeah, I'm just looking up Czar Star Studio because I don't want to butcher the names of his other comics. There's probably some ads here in the back, but the other stuff he was doing came out later. Nice pinups here. So, She That Kills the Dead, and he goes by D. Castor. His name is Dave Castor. So he's got this character, and I think this is like a zombie apocalypse type setup. And just a real super nice guy. He hung out afterwards too. But let's see, Czar Star Studios. I'm gonna follow it right now. He had a bunch of different, and he bought a couple comics off me. Oh, they don't have too many posts, oddly enough. Maybe he has a website here, czarStarStudios.com, so we can see his other comics. He's selling original art, and here is Shop. He's selling sketches. Nice little art, but he had all these comics. All right, so he's got Ziggy and the Outsider button set. So I think that's maybe one of his other titles. He's got Heart Book. Oh, here. All right. My Emo Vortex. So here's his other title. This is a little more current. My Emo Vortex. People can check that out. Here's issue number 1 and issue number 2. Got that for sale. Then he's got Forget Me Nots, which is a zine. He's got Inks Volume 1. It's a sketchbook. Because that's what I got to start doing. I got to start doing all the skins. He's doing blank cover art. He actually bought my blank cover comics that I had Daredevil #1 and Batman and Robin #1. So he does those. And then what I don't know. I thought he had another title, but let's just go with My Emo Vortex #1 and #2. And nice stuff, colorful. And it says he does all the pencils and inks, and then he's got a colorist. And I think he works on tablet. I don't remember exactly. But, yeah, it looks like zombie apocalypse stuff. And this character is like, she's got a spiked helmet and a baseball bat. She wears, like, leather. And antics ensue. So it looks like pretty nice stuff. Kind of gory a little. Violence and gory. And this is just #1. So I don't know. I think I saw another copy. So yeah, I would like to prioritize Dave and get him on the schedule. So let's. I'll try to just email him and get you on an email chain and have him on. He's a super nice guy. And our tables were close to each other, so we spoke. But yeah, that was it. Here's some sketch cards that I did. This is the Invisible Girl, and it says Galactus, Panther, Wyatt Wingfoot. I seen them all taking a shit. Here's a Turbo. This one, I don't even know what I was thinking. This is when you're just drinking and drawing. And then I brought a lot of original art. And, the preparation I did for the show was pretty intense too, because I gathered together in one folder all of this original art that I have for sale. And then all of these original comic pages I have for sale, which is different from like pinups. And then I have all the stuff that was like in progress, then so I was whipping that out at the drink and draw, and I was working on some of that stuff, and it came out pretty well. It came out pretty good. So we can go through that if you want, if we're recapping the weekend. Well, yeah. So I have some photos. Let's see. I took a photo. All right. So first off, we got to talk about the venue. So here I took a picture of it from my car, and it's not much to look at. It's just like this big, I don't know, like a field house, I think they call it, but it's an event space. There was a big stage there, but it's in one of these developing areas in Jacksonville. Like, around it, there's like a couple of, I don't want to say factories, but like, big, like centers. They look like warehouses, like giant, tracts of land, which have like, yeah. So it's kind of like an industrial area, driving up. And then when you get there, the whole place, I mean, they still had like earth movers and stuff because the whole area is still under development. But this was, a fully built building with, power, lights, air conditioning, all that. And then a huge parking lot in the front, a smaller parking lot in the back, big loading docks, doors, which everyone's loading under, including like a little rain cover, which came in very important when we were unloading. But there's, really nondescript, nothing around, no big signs. They don't have like a giant archway or anything like that. So it looks like it was built recently. And this was my setup here with a picture of me. Somebody took. I had. I was selling my colorful faces, which I actually. Here's big blow-ups of Turbo #1 and Doom Magazine's #1 behind me, and a big blow-up of Pearl White Malady #1. And then I had the comics for sale. I had the prints for sale. I have my concert posters for sale, which I did sell one of, I think. I had my records for sale, which I actually sold a couple. And here's all the printed comics that we just got printed, right? And then here's my original art, which I had like 3 different portfolios that you could zip through. And then here I had 2 $1 boxes of comics and 1 $2 and up box of comics. And I sell a lot of these because, this brings people over to the table. They start flipping through. You get to talking, and next thing you know, they, you know how it works. Like sometimes you sell one comic after like talking with somebody like 30 minutes, right? Because, they're like, oh, you do sword and sorcery. Wow, I like sword and sorcery. Then, they just like hear your whole deal, and then they buy some comics. So the walkthrough, let's see. Oh, so this was, I took a picture of this one because I sold it. So I was saying bye-bye. And I took a picture of this one because I sold it. And I was saying bye-bye. So I had like the colorful faces in posters and in paintings and illustrations. Then I have my walkthrough here. So this. I'm gonna try and center this. Do you want to make me the full screen? Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Let me go to the back. Let me go. All right. So I'm starting right next to my table, and I'm walking kind of briskly. As you can see, the tables are pretty well attended. By the time I got up off my table and started walking around, it was kind of dying down a little. It was thinning out. So yeah, so probably had to be. It was definitely afternoon. They opened to the public. They opened like for early bird VIP, like I think at 9, and so then it opens to the public at 10. And there was kind of like an initial rush where it fills up and there's a lot of people. Now, the way they had this whole arena set up inside, it was a big internal space, was that all of the collectible peoples were on one side and all of the artists and publishers and everything were on another side. And there was a noticeable difference in crowd. There was huge crowds on the collectible sides. And what I learned talking to people, because this was 100-degree day out there, and it was so cool and like air conditioned on inside that I couldn't even take it anymore. I actually wore a blanket around me because it was so cold in there. You could swing beef in this place. That's how cold it was. Yeah, and you can see there's still like a pretty decent crowd on the collectibles side. So there was people there selling comics, there was people doing Funko, there was people doing cosplay, there was people doing cards, there was like significant card traffic, and there was what I found out is that in Florida on these really hot days, the families come out to do something in the early morning, and then they're home by the time the sun hits its zenith, because it's like it's too hot to be out and around. So that's basically what happened. It was a lot slower in the afternoon after 1 or 2 o'clock, and the thing went all the way to I think 6. So there was definitely some busy portion and a lull portion. And I did better business-wise. I made back my table. I made back more than half of my hotel room. But I didn't make back my rental car. Now, that is kind of a wash anyway, because I was driving my wife down to Daytona, and that saved her and me like airfare or whatever. So maybe you want to, and I spent a day in Daytona, a day and a half in Daytona before I went to Jacksonville. So, it was okay. But, some people were traveling in from, other areas. And, those, like somebody that flies from Portland, Oregon, has to be like $1,000, round trip, right? So, you wonder if everybody's making back their money. Now, Cosmic Lion had 4 tables, and they had like great stuff out, and I'm sure they did like brisk business. They also had a separate table for Cosmic Lion manga division, which was Ro Higashi, and I got to see her and speak to her, and she brought her kids, she brought her husband. So I don't know where she was coming from, but she seemed like she had a decent time. And I also spoke to Diana, who I think is Diana Sakuzian, if I'm not butchering her last name. She is an editor for Cosmic Lion. And so she, I think, was at their tables, and she had like sitting manning one of their tables. Who else was there? They had, yes, Adam Lemna was there. I didn't talk to him though. And yeah, and there was a bunch of people that we had interviewed before. Well, I think, yeah, probably mostly those folks. But at the end, I didn't run into him. Yeah, I think he was on the list. but I didn't like as I'm walking around here, my table is just empty. So, I was kind of nervous and I didn't want to spend too much. So I just did a quick skip through and I didn't get to schmooze as much as I would have liked to. And, you figured like the drink and draw is for that. But the drink and draw the night before was nice. It was at this place called Kickbacks. And, there was this huge table, but the tables were all full like last time. Like it just fills up with these guys that are all like tight with each other, I guess, and they're all drawing and they're all catching up and then drinking. And it was kind of dim in there, so I was sitting outside in the outdoor portion with all these other people that I met, really really cool guys. And there's one guy that I want to identify and see if we can get him on the show. Great artist and cool stories. And yeah, so I hung out with a bunch of different people. And I have their like business cards somewhere. I also spoke to these guys, Spineworks Comics, and Spineworks Comics is a restoration company. They do comic book cleaning and pressing, and so that you can go back and get your CGC slabs re-evaluated and upgraded, or maybe you didn't do it yet, so maybe you do this before you get them slabs. And Lenny Cerna is the guy. They have a location in New York, but this card is from Kissimmee, Florida. So I have a friend. He's actually a band member, my keyboard player, and he's got FF1. He's got Amazing Fantasy 15. He's got, this incredible collection. He's got like full runs. He's got every Spider-Man from one to like 200 and something. I think he goes all the way up to like the 80s. He's got every single Spider-Man. And so he is definitely making an appointment with Spineworks because I think he needs to liquidate. He said he was going to liquidate his FFs and then he's going to hold on to everything else. But he's got like Avengers 1, X-Men 1, like a great collection of stuff. And so, I was a little disappointed with the afternoon, but it was brisk during the morning, and it was just like New Haven. We were selling stuff, talking to people, making friends, talking to the people in the nearby tables. So definitely worth doing, but for me, it was a long drive, and I rented a car, drove all the way from New York down to Daytona, then back up to Jacksonville, then back home. So long drive, but I managed. Here's the pile of original art that I brought to sell, and I gotta say, it's nice to have some original art there, but I don't think it's the venue. A lot of families are coming through here, and they just want to get some stuff for the kids, and then there's some like maybe the adults are into comics, and they want to get some comics and everything. But if they buy like a couple comics, they're spent. Like you probably you can buy like 3 comics nowadays and be out like $30-$50. So original art is something that should have its own show, and that's why they're doing that with the OAX shows and the other ones. So I applaud, and I would love to maybe get involved in that. Problem is, I'm not a name, and all this stuff, all this original art that I have, it's not like Wolverine or anything. It's all end of the world timeline stuff. So you could say, well, this is original art that was published in my comic, but if you're trying to get somebody on board to buy all that, they have to know who you are, buy into it. They have to think you're going somewhere. You're committed. So what I ended up selling as far as original art was, and prints too, was more like this kind of stuff, like stuff that I just have like with me that's just like eye candy. Yeah, like psychedelic acid trip stuff, right? And people like this kind of stuff because you just hang it up or put it in a post frame, whatever. Maybe something like this. It's like no particular character, So I sold a couple pieces, but I can't complain about that. But I would like to market some of the stuff. And you know what I think? Like if I can't get into a table at an original art fair, and I can't get people to say like, oh, this is talented stuff. This is then what I think I might want to try is selling the stuff on Whatnot, because Whatnot you can go over, page by page, and you can explain it. You show what it, who the character is. Or you can say this was published in Doom Mag #1, or this is published in my sketch diary, or whatever. And maybe you have a little bit more time to explain it all. I don't know if it would actually move or if I would just be there talking to myself, but that might be worth a try. Especially if this stuff is priced to move. Now, some of this stuff, like I would be actually seeking some advice in how to price this, because obviously the lower price it is, the more you'll sell, but not necessarily. Like it might just be like if somebody's collecting original art, like I have the covers of Turbo Teaser for sale, original art. I have the pencils of it and the back cover. Maybe some of it, like here's a copy of the comic, and here's the original art. That printed, and it was eventually inked. And so maybe somebody's interested in that kind of stuff, but I don't know. I know I have a lot of this folder right here has like, I don't know, 40 pieces. Then I have the in progress folder that I want to show. And I want to show this one because I worked on some stuff and I haven't seen it since the drink and draw. Now, I spoke to Matt Sardo, and he's a very, very personable guy. Like he wants to know what people are thinking. He wants to know how he can improve. He really takes it all in. He's met. What's that? Yeah. I mean, they were. Yeah, Kezra was there, and they were going around the tables. They were shooting videos. They were interviewing people. They were doing all kinds of stuff. And they were at the drink and draw, and definitely talking to people, telling stories. They have a lot of different, I don't know, like 150 different exhibitors there that they're trying to cater to, and make this work for everybody. Oh, this was. Yeah. No, the pop culture was there. Pop culture was definitely there. Well, the question is if they. I mean, this. It seems like it was an experiment. They combined First Coast and IC3. They had it half and half. The question is, do you get this big crowd in, and then they all go over to the artist tables, and then they buy, comics and original art from artists, and versus does that, cannibalize, the idea of indie artists? Can they coexist? And, I saw with my own eyes, you had a lot of people, like throngs of people, like, but when they opened the doors and, people started coming in, maybe like, over the next hour or two, that side was packed with people, and including, children, kids and adults buying Funkos and buying, everything, t-shirts, all that stuff. And the artist side, you had a lot of nice people walking around and people in cosplay walking around, going to tables. But there's no doubt about it that the First Coast side did better. It was busier. It was busier for longer, and I think they had more of a robust clientele there for the products that were there, and it's probably because they've been around and everybody knows what they are and what they were doing. And IC3 was their first time in Jacksonville. And, they were saying, oh, look, we have all these indie creators coming. But, when you're just like, Tom, Dick, and Harry walking in with your kid in a stroller, you don't know who that is. You know who Marvel is and DC is, So, they were coming around. And what Kurt's talking about also is the aspiring artists that come around with their portfolio, and I saw some of those. And I spoke to a nice kid. I call him a kid, but he was in his 20s. Named Alan, I think his name. Yeah, Alan. And I hope that we hear back from him because I looked through his portfolio and it looked pretty nice. And I gave him a copy of Doom Magazine #1 for free, and I told him to look at the bullet points in the back, and if he wants to work together, that we can definitely talk about it. So the thing is, that kid was doing that probably with Cosmic Lion and probably doing it with every other table too. So if they're also offering him opportunities, then we're all kind of competing. But there was people like that there. It's just that when you go to MoCA, what does it stand for? Museum of Comic Creators Art something. That's all it is. It's all like it's all the publishers, indie publishers, distributors. You have there's no Marvel and DC there. It's all like the illustrators. It's all the the part-timers. It's all the the people that have been around, like some people doing signings, and they have like creator-owned property that they're promoting, and then like people like Floating World are there, and they have like a whole table set up of great stuff that you can buy. So I do not fault IC3 for trying to see if you can kind of cross-pollinate with First Coast, an existing con, and I'm sure that they're going to have a lot of reflection about what worked and what didn't, and and whether or not they continue that. But to me, that was a question whether it was the right city or town area, whether it was the right population, like client base. And all that kind of stuff, because I did decent, but I definitely did better up in the Northeast, and and that's the only question, is whether all the collectibles and everything actually hurts. Like if people come and they're like, all right, we have $200, that's all we're spending, or we have $100, that's all we're spending, and then they walk into that space and they see 150 tables there. Is it?
different because we're all just indie. There's nobody there.
I am so looking forward to that.
Exactly. But I really do believe in being found. But then if you're found by people, the real trick is being able to stay connected with them. Now, I think the biggest thing, and I'm not calling you out on this, Jake, but how many times did you hoarse your voice telling them you have a YouTube channel?
I did. Well, if I got the opportunity to talk to somebody,
right?
I definitely plugged it, and it's all in the back of Doom Magazine #1. There's a barcode and a QR code, and I was like, hey, you can pop in next Sunday, and in the comments, and just say hi, So I definitely did, but. The number of people that you get to talk to at a con for 15, 20 minutes and really get into it is not as much as the people that might come by your table, pass you by. They might tickle through the used comics and then pass by. It is generally friendly people, but there's a point where there's so many artists there. I mean, if there's 100 different creators, you're all fighting for that time and attention with the people that are coming to, to spend money. And, a lot of times, honestly, we're just, selling stuff to other artists. Sometimes we trade, but, there is that too, where like, wow, I love this guy's stuff. I want to get a copy of this, And then, for me, I'm always on the lookout for people that might be able to do our indie creator interviews, and just try to help them plug their stuff on our broadcast. So there's a lot going on for us, but you're right when Kurt always talks about the people that come to your table and they go, I've seen you somewhere. Right? That's when you can say, that's when you can really introduce yourself, because they've already have one, kind of like, what a touch point or whatever, that they've heard of you, or there's something that they remember from something they saw. And then you could say, yeah, this is the comic that we're making online, and you might have come across our YouTube channel if you were watching Comic Kayfabe, or if you were watching Comic Tropes, or if you were watching the Frazetta Girls or whatever, maybe they fed you, our
most definitely.
Yeah,
most definitely. But here's a really cool thing that happened to me. This past week we were down vacationing in on the Chesapeake, and there's a Easton plein air event down there, and for the first 2 days we're driving around all the little towns looking for these painters. Now, plein air is primarily just painting, landscape stuff, right? And we actually know one of the guys locally from up here that was going to be down there, so we were sort of searching for him, but at the same time we were, just wanting to see people and everything. So we found this really nice, secluded cluster of artists, and I got to gentlemen that were basically around my age. They might have been actually a little younger. And so, you get the chatting and everything, and they're like, oh, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I make and publish comic books. And they're like, oh, wow, that's really cool and everything. So, you're just bantering. It's live bantering. And then I I went to the Maryland Institute College of Art. And so he called the guy over, just the way he was painting. And that guy came over. And so we started chatting about Micah. Then the first guy said, so how long you been doing this comic book thing? I said, well, if you're on YouTube, you can watch 4.5 years of the videos my friend Jake and I do for our Turbo Pit Fighter comic. Both of these guys took their phones out. Both of them logged on to YouTube, and we're like, holy crap. Now, I hear you, Jake, when you have been going on about wanting to sell your art, right? And for me, my art is, this is what I want to sell, right? I do want to sell the original pages, but I have a whole nother mission when it comes to that. But this is the art, right? But the competitiveness out there for people's attention is so overwhelming that I get the biggest kick now. And I've been working on this little spiel for probably 6 years, definitely the last 4 years, because of our channel, Turbo Pit Fighter. So it was so cool to have these two guys basically around my age, incredibly talented. One was one was an adjunct at my alma mater. We knew people, it was this whole thing. But the moment I said, yeah, you could watch 4.5 years of every Sunday, my buddy and I getting together, working on the same comic book, they were like, what? So, I have so much faith in you and I's mission to do 6 issues of Turbo Pit Fighter, which we are rounding the corner to finish issue number 1. But the fact that you have gone down to Jacksonville to an IC3 event with not only Turbo Pit Fighter teasers, but now our first published comic, which is Doom Mag's #1 End of the World Timeline Anthology. But you also have Pearl White Malady. All of that is included to, our getting together with which is what this is all about. But talk about a business card. Like, that's what it felt like. And then when my wife and I were walking away, she was like, wow, they really reacted to that. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't matter. These guys are all trying to figure out, every artist out there is trying to figure out the same thing. How do I get some kind of attention? Well, we've got the best business card going right now, I think, in indie comics. And if you want to put links to other people's channels that have been at this for 4.5 years, who have been working side by side and are publishing comic books, please do it, because we want to get in collaboration with them, because that's what it comes down to. But dude, I restrained myself from calling you. I wanted to really sit down and hear how the show was, but I was like, nah, I want to save it. I want to save it for for the channel and hear exactly what was going on. My watching, because not only following you on Instagram, but there was some obviously IC3s, Matt Sardo, Kazra, Cosmic Lion did a lot of like uploads, reels, and man, I was just like, that show looks really good for being a split show. In other words, you did have a foundational established comic book show down there, Comic-Con. And then the other half was for people like us that are looking to be found. And I think that's my mission for us when it comes to SPX and IC3 Rochester, Rhode Island, is that there's a destination. And so if you're listening to us right now and you're hearing my voice and you want to hit this show, you know what I mean? Please get in contact with either Jake or I ahead of time, because we want to hang out with people who are collectors, fans, and obviously creators themselves. The biggest news I have already, and the news is coming in for SPX, is that I got Noah Luciani's table and I are next to each other at SPX. So that was so incredible, because Noah reached out and said, hey, I'm going to be at SBS. It's going to be my first big show. Can you, maybe help me navigate some of this? I was like, sure. So we went back and forth, and then he was like, I just sent an email to Warren, who's the founder and showrunner of SPX, asking to put our tables together. And I said, I'll do a follow-up. And they got back and said, yeah, we got you guys together table-wise and stuff. So, and I also know what my table number is, which is A2, which is, if I can remember, I'm actually going to go find the map down in the basement either today or tomorrow, because I think that's at the entryway, like when you come in through these four or five, six entryways to the big, to the show itself, there's tables immediately on the left and right of those entryways. But anyhow, dude, what a great thing, man.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to the drink and draw.
Yeah.
And so they were teasing, I forget the name of the First Coast guys, but so the first night, like the venue was good, it was they had food there, they had drinks there, nice. it was a big space in Jacksonville, kind of like the I don't know if there's like the hipster zone, but it's more like the strip, where all the bars are in a row and restaurants, a lot of people. So that was great. Then the night of the show, you go to the to the after party, and it wasn't a drink and draw, which I only found out when I got there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I was missing an email or something. I didn't even know where it was. I only heard during talking to people that it was at a rooftop. So I went to the rooftop place in Jacksonville, and there they all were. But they were not drawing. They were not, and Casper said, "Oh no, there's no drawing tonight. Tonight's just drinking." And I was like, "Oh," because I brought all my drawing stuff. And some people were sitting there drawing at the bar. So I think people wanted to, at least a couple of people wanted to, or maybe they're super nerds like me and they just like always want to be drawing. But I heard a couple of people making fun of the choice of venue the second night, because they said that it was the choice of one of the First Coast guys, and he never goes out. and so it was a very popular place, but it was super noisy with like club music. And there was a lot of like hot babes and dudes there that were all dressed up. So it was basically like a pickup joint. Nice. And it was a beautiful it was a beautiful rooftop. And you even got to see fireworks, go off, from the rooftop. And, they had couches and stuff, but it was a little rainy that day. So, it wasn't like if it would have just been back at the same place as the night before, people would have been able to sit down, draw, drink, eat, do all that. I don't think anybody wanted to. I don't think anybody wanted to dance. I don't think anybody wanted to pick up girls. I don't think there was. I mean, I don't know. Maybe somebody did, but it was all like 20-year-olds from Jacksonville that were in tube tops. So I don't know if that's the place. You're a comic nerd in there. You're walking around with a comic book on your shirt. If they're going to. If they're going to pick up on that, but that and these are all minor complaints, because I wanted to talk, I wanted to work, that was, I was talking with Eli, the night, the first night, the second night, a little bit. I was showing Eli, I was actually pitching Eli. I was like, look, this is a pitch that I had from 20 years ago. And I showed him this. He was like, what the fuck is this? And I was like, yeah, this is just, I had a bunch of like exploitation, like storylines and everything, but this is just back burner. I just have this art here, and I'm like, I am going to work this up at some point, and he was like, yeah, he liked it. Anyway, it was a lot of that. Like, people were wheeling and dealing. There was artists there, that wanted to sit next to Eli. There was all kinds of, people there that were like creating for a long time, and they're looking how to promote and how to, ask other guys, like, what show do you do? Do you do any consignment with retailers? Do you knock on doors, cold call? Like, all these kind of questions that comic people all do, where you from, that kind of stuff. So,
but I believe it in all sincerity, if I was there with you and we were with like people we knew, and we were all kind of, having the same vibe. It would have been, I think it would have been it would have been appropriate to just been like, hey, why don't we just go do our own thing somewhere else quiet and just like really catch up with each other? Because my number one reasoning for going to these shows is seeing face to face in the flesh these other creators that you watch and follow. I watch and follow through YouTube and Instagram, and so many of them, especially like what Eli Schwab does with Cosmic Lion, Rose Higashi, Adam Lemna, Rick Lopez. He was definitely there. He flew in like, I think that morning, did that show, and then flew out Saturday. I mean, dude, talk about a guy you want to hang with. Talk about somebody that, they know the landscape too, like what shows to do. If you do it, how should you do it and stuff. That's really what this is all about, for doing the show. Yeah, I want to sell books. I want to make some money, or my money back is, on the room and the travel and stuff. I get it. But if we're only doing my goal is to do 3 shows a year. IC3s are obviously the easiest in the sense of like submission and already kind of being on the boots running with. But I really think you and I need to start talking about making Heroes Con a destination, a major destination for going down there. And maybe even trying to set something up on the peripheral, quote unquote, as like let's say a turbo fan club. I hate fan club because I feel like most of the people, even Dream right Control. Now, well, Dream Controls, yeah. But we've got, Daryl, Travis, Charlie, Battenmerk, we've got a lot of people, Ralph, Nixon, there's so many people that I feel like we have so many alignments with, that if we can all be a destination for each other going to a show, then it's not so overwhelming. It's not so disappointing maybe, because one of the most standout things I remember leading up to and through IC3 last year in New Haven was Matt Sardo saying the reason he started this show was he was tired of going to the big shows and hearing guys and gals that he was following as indie creators saying, this is it. I can't do this anymore. It's cost too much. I'm losing money. I'm losing heart. And so the IC3 thing is just branding itself and getting off the ground. But it's our responsibility as the creators to, make destination out of it. Like, why would people come? So we can throw stuff at them and say, buy this, buy me. Okay. Let's step back and hey, find out more about who I am. So that was going back to the question, how many people were coming up with identifiable merch or books that were indie friendly, and they were just looking to connect. Right.
I mean, also, you also have people talking about the Power Pulp idea.
I was just going to say, yeah. I don't think anybody was there for that. I don't think there was any representation of Power Pulp there, which they are an online thing for the most part. But they are going to be representing at IC3 Providence.
Yeah, I saw they were listed as like a sponsor or something like that. But they but that idea of just having one depot where you can all about saving the shipping. I mean, I was going to I'm talking with Jim Coates about trading. I have this rare Dreamweaver comic that he saw on one of my flip throughs, and I'm going to be trading him for it. And so I wanted to support his Kickstarter, and he's got, you can buy Emerald Emu #1 and 2, which is great, and it's $10 a piece, and and then it's $8 for shipping, and then every time I'm paying $8 for shipping, I wonder, well, maybe I can bundle something and save some money, because if I'm already getting a package, maybe, something else from the same seller. Every time I'm on eBay, that's what I'm thinking about.
Right.
And, that's the whole idea about Power Pulp. He's one of the guys that's doing all the shipping for Power Pulp. So, that's a pretty important thing. Like, if you have 20 or 30 guys and one of them has, 5 copies of their stuff in their place, and people can just order it, and just ship it, you're saving tons of money for, saving the customer money, and you're saving the, the publisher time and money. But, those are the things, those are the roles that comic companies used to have, like Bud Plant and Last Gasp and Fantagraphics. Like, they would have catalogs, and they would carry their comics and other people's comics. Whatever would sell, they wanted to sell and make a profit on.
Yep.
And they would do that, and you don't see that anymore.
Nope.
Like, I came across a comic I was looking at that was listing Friendly Franks in the Indicia page. You remember Friendly Franks?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, here was sometimes they're just like a comic store somewhere, but they become a distributor and they publish a catalog, and it should be easier than ever to do this now, because it's just, you don't have to make a print catalog at all. And if you get one person to buy one comic one time, you could expose them to the whole rest of the catalog, to benefit all the other people in a collective. And, we need to have more of that. So that's why I love the Power Pulp idea. But I just think, there should be more, more little groupings like that. And hopefully that, that will be, because the industry is going to have to adjust now the diamond's gone, and Marvel and DC, are taking care of themselves. They got the Penguin deal, and they have the Lunar deal, and they have the the distribution that they want for their books, because they're trying to get out to hundreds of retailers every week, or thousands, or 1,000 or something retailers every week. But what about all your indie guys, And the other thing is, it's like there's no schedule, right? Like the books come out when they come out.
It's true.
So, so it's nice when there's something new out, and that's when retailers might want to, see what else they can offer their customers and what else they can sell, because at some point it just gets a little tedious to just have, like, Iron Man #1 is out. Oh my gosh, wow. What is old Shellhead going to do this time? Well, this time he's fighting Dr. Baron Zemo. Oh boy. Is he going to end the world? Yeah, that's it. He's going to end the world. And Iron Man's on the brink of saving the world. Oh, wow. Okay. Who's doing the art? It's some guy. Okay, great. I mean, I make fun, but there is this whole Ultimates thing that I don't know, like, shit about. But it is like one of these, like, little bursts of excitement in the Marvel and DC comic world right now. Like, I think it's called Batman Ultimates.
Yeah.
And it's a reboot of Batman where he's like a kid in, like, a world or something. And whatever the storyline is, I don't know. But it's sold a lot, and now, they say, oh, some people are paying $200 for Batman Ultimate #1. Oh boy. So, these
But it doesn't translate to us. It does not translate to us. I think the mechanism that is completely broken, which I believe comic book artists and publishers have been basically the cause for harming, is that the catalogs that then just got all bought out or dissolved because of the hugeness of Diamond. But just going back to your Kurt Lindo Vampirotica story, he didn't even have a fucking comic book He just had a title, and he was
Right.
able to solicit it and get 3,000 pre-orders, which was in the can for him to come and deliver. So you could go to a printer and say, hey, look, I need 4,000 copies of this comic. The problem is that I'm going to get paid, 60 days after I deliver. Can you carry me for 60, so on and so forth. But what has happened is we're still hanging in this, oh, I made a comic book. You like comic books? You go to the comic book store, and it's just not, there is no translation down to us, any of us. Now, I do believe, going back to IC3 Jacksonville and being in cahoots with First Coast, which is, I think, been around for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years or something like that. And they have been bringing in like 1,500 people from that area to come in and buy comics or comic paraphernalia. Okay, let's just take a little math. If 150 of those people are willing to venture into an indie section, I mean, just Eli himself could have sold 300 to 400 comic books to new fans. People are like, holy shit. Or like, I would love to, I totally want to get Ro Higashi back on, because her heading up the manga section of Cosmic Lion, she's going to have some real insight, because she's at the tip of the iceberg when it comes to indie manga American making comics. I mean, she's right up in there, but she's going to have the reality checklist. Like, yeah, when we were at, Jacksonville, we, sold, I don't know, around 100 or something, you know what I mean? Like, but there was a lot of people that when they saw, my banner, Rose saying my banner, or, so-and-so's banner, and, oh, that's manga, I like manga, and they come strolling up, and then they flip through her 2 amazing graphic novels for her. I mean, I don't know how somebody couldn't walk away, but at the same time, manga doesn't translate to all manga.
How would you love the job description of saying, hey, I work for a small but growing indie comic publisher in America, and my job is to find and curate overseas manga that can be brought over, translated, republished. Oh my God, what a cool job.
But I think they're also I think it's also for the state side, because of
right. Well, you find whatever you find. But
yeah, well, you got to take chances on what people want too. At the end of the day, how the hell do you market Turbo Pit Fighter as a comic book?
Well, that's
in the landscape. You know what I mean? Like it's not superhero. We call it. I'm the one that put the tagline to post-apocalyptic romance. I was just trying to be funny and bust your balls about it, because it was like, we need something that's true inside the story, identifiably, that we still can grow, which is the relationship between Turbo and Trophy Girl, and
yeah,
that's a part.
So that's a part of it. The other thing is, like selling comics and, just being one table at a Comic-Con when there's like so many other tables there. On the one hand, well, everybody's there looking for comics. It's great. On the other hand, well, I'm just one table here and there's so many other people here, and, there's Frank Miller right over there, so, there's like a hierarchy, and, can you scratch out, a profit or just make it like a net worthwhile? What if you set up your table at a street fair instead?
Yeah. No, I've heard guys do better at those than anything else.
Yeah, exactly. And I not only have a comic addiction and habit, but I also have a record addiction and habit. And once a year, I set up a table at a record fair, the WFMU record fair. I've been doing it for, I don't know, I don't even know how long I've been doing it, more than 15 years. And, you know, so you do okay in those places. But when I hear about somebody that just sets up their record, you know, sales at a street fair, they do so much better because you have all, you know, it's just the general public coming by, but you're the only one there, you know, that's selling records. And so everybody with a record player comes over to your table, you know. So it's much more well worth it, you know, to do that. But, you know, there's other hazards, like it might rain. You know, you're out in the streets with like people that might steal. You know, there's all this stuff. You know, that there's of course, you know, pitfalls for everything. But you know, when it comes to comics, like people need to get creative. Like I really think that there's this whole untapped. I've mentioned this before, but what we've never really acted on it. I think that there's this whole untapped potential in these cannabis shops to find a little stand, like if Power Pulp would like maybe invest in like 50 metal stands that hold, you know, those little racks, and you know, just loan them to the, you know, cannabis store, paraphernalia. Like sometimes it's a smoke shop. Like in New York, we have legal cannabis now, and there's all these dispensaries, but you have to have a license. So those stores are maybe like, you know, 1 in every 10 are legal, or maybe it's only 1 in like every 50. Actually, it's probably more like it. There's smoke shops everywhere. They say smoked, vape, and kratom, whatever the hell that is. That they, you know, stuff that they sell over the counter, and it's all legal, I guess. But then you have legal, you know, cannabis shops that sell real weeds, you know, get people high, and they sell edibles and they sell all kinds of stuff. And these are mostly stores that are empty of decoration and empty of, like, you know, you would think, like, how come they don't have blacklight posters hanging up, you know?
Bob Marley.
Yeah, and Bob Marley posters, right? And getting people in the mood for, hey, this is a weed place, you know? Because, you know, some of the smoke shops, you know, they have a big case of bongs and, like, you know, ceramic pipes. And oh, you can buy the Grateful Dead one, you know. Oh, wow, you know. And I wonder, because in the 60s and the 70s, that was where you could buy your underground comics, you know. And especially in New York City, I remember, because I used to go into those places and play pinball, and you know, and play, you know, early video games, and you would have, you know, a little stand of comics at the counter, and you would know they were adult comics, and you weren't even allowed to touch them. When I was a kid, I wasn't even allowed to touch them, but they were selling them there because they had the greatest captive audience, which is stoners, you know, and you know, they're looking for something to read. And you know, they sold all kinds of paraphernalia. They used to sell posters. You could get your Easy Rider poster. You could get your you know, your rolling papers. You can get all, you know, whatever, you know, your lava lamp. But I think that, you know, comic book publishers, distributors, you know, people like us should try to make some deals with your local indie, you know, shops. You know, because when I had a concert, a gig, and I had this real colorful poster, I went into this local smoke shop in my town. I was living in Nyack back then, and the guy was like, "Oh, wow, can I have that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I was just going to ask, would you be willing to hang this up because it's promoting a show that we're doing in 2 weeks or a week?" And he was like, "Oh, definitely. I'll put this in the window. Will you sign this?" I was like, "Oh, wow. Yeah, sure." You know, so it's like, it's a great go together, you know, and I don't think people do it enough. And I even wonder, you know, if people got organized, you know, to say, all right, we're going to hit like 50 dispensaries up and down the East Coast, and we're going to deliver our little metal wire stand. We're going to give them a starter kit of 5 copies of these bestsellers, and if they don't sell, we'll come back and pick up the copies. We'll say thanks for trying. But if they start to sell, then you replenish them, and maybe you want to give 2 stands, and we'll have, instead of having 5 comics, here's 10 comics now that people can choose from. And it's like it's not just trying to sell comics. That's not just what you're doing. You're also advertising the fact that there are comics there. And maybe you don't get somebody the first trip. Maybe you get them the 3rd or 4th time they come in there, and they're there's a long line, and so they're waiting, and so they start flipping through the comics. Maybe that's a way to go. I don't know. Maybe it's a bad idea. Maybe comics.
I don't think there's no such thing as a bad idea. There's only ideas that have the scale of their value in how they perform. We all have to stay in there. Now, everything that you just went through is a massive undertaking, and it's really categorically under distribution, because anybody like us that's listening to us right now, they're struggling just to make the comic book. Once again, the reminder is Jake and I get together every Sunday for 3 hours to make a comic book. Sometimes we split that time, like we will next week with Alex Turbin. Will be our first guinea pig for the OBS testing, the new podcasting system that we're using since we've left Riverside. And, everything we're talking right now about, Alex is in the same zone in ideas. He has random access comics.com. He's doing his best to build a junction point, a distributing junction point. So we're going to get him to talk about that. And then other things, just getting a decent update from him, and then I will be reaching out to people. You and I will start collaborating a list and putting that together to get individuals on coming thing. I do have to tell you, there's one disappointment. We're not going to be able to stream for 3 hours straight and then bring the guest in halfway because once I hit the streaming on OBS, it locks the system. So I can't edit anything per se in the system. So I can't add somebody or subtract somebody. So we're just going to have to disconnect and then reconnect, go back online, go live again with our guests. So, but that to me is just a small price to pay for not paying anything now for our our streaming. But it is so amazing. I mean, to an exhausting point, I think, watching YouTube and listening to people. It's kind of like the majority of what I'm filtering through artists in general, not just comics, because I love art and art making. So I pretty much just spend all of my free time on YouTube watching other people talk and make art and everything. But the struggle today, I feel, in the middle of 2026 is just being not only seen, but remembered in a way. Like, okay, so this is me being me. So Ralph Nixon Jr. Under God, Volume 2 is on its way. Very excited about that. Level 9, Drow. Oh man, I got the comic right here. Hold on a second. Hold on. I'll get a little. We should have it right here. Come on. I try to do. Oh, here it is. Midnight Pulp. I watch him make his pages, one page at a time. Isaac Horn goes by Level 9 Drow. So issue 3 is, it's getting closer and closer to coming out and everything. These are strategies that I feel are, super making sense. But I think a lot of the anxiety all of us are feeling is the being remembered. Oh, do you remember that? Ralph Nixon Jr. is going to put another volume. He's actually got 3, volume 3 in the works as well. It's not only just being seen or heard, it's being remembered for what it is. I have actually stepped away from social media for the most part for Crom and Crom Anthology so I can get Crom Anthology 2 completed. But I will basically be spending the month of August, pretty much the month of August and September, doing nothing but promotions for Crom Anthology number 2. And then once I finish both the shows, SBX and IC3, October, I'll probably take a little breather break and then return to working on Crom Anthology number 3. But the whole thinking I've had right now is don't try to stay relevant all the time. In other words, you're going to exhaust yourself. You're going to frustrate yourself if you're trying to maintain some sort of hit. Like, bang, remember me, bang, remember me, bang, remember me. I think you're going to do just as well. And I will be able to have feedback on this in October, end of October, with the launch and release of Crom Anthology number 2. Is how many people will remember. Oh, shit, that's right. Kurt also does, or Kurt, Bruegel has this Crom Anthology, cromthebarbarian.com and everything. It's a big challenge. So I think, once again, going back to destination, meeting at shows, sharing with each other, like, hey, I know, we're within so many miles and stuff. Is this a decent show? Like Jamie Barrows, who does Brutal Blade of Crom, he'll post that he's at a show. And then after the show, I'll be like, hey, how was that show? Is it worth driving 5.5 hours out there to do that show with you? These are the things I would love to get more and more from. And, I don't want to put you on the platform, but I think there's going to come a time where I'm going to have to fly out to the West Coast because we have so many people that we're engaged with in connecting with as indie comic creators that are out there. And that's why I would go out there. I wouldn't go out there to do San Diego Con. I wouldn't want to go and be able to meet Charlie, meet Bat Merck, you know what I mean? Try to find a central location and get people together and then tell people like, hey, there's 6 or 7 or 8, maybe 10 of us together. And we rented this little place at the Radisson in, Bodunk, California, and see who comes out. I mean, I think that's where we're at. Nobody's going to save our asses. Nobody's going to promote our asses. Nobody's going to distribute our asses. It's not anywhere near, I think, anybody who has a business sense to really get into, like, start a business. I don't, driving around the East, up and down the East Coast to vape shop, you know what I mean? Like, trying to put comic books in a spinner. Well, that's the biggest thing. And then trying to keep track. I think the theft part is probably like one of the biggest hardships that would come with it and in maintaining that. But, like I said, there's no bad ideas. There's only ideas, and whether they get played out and whatever that reaction is to it is the way you gotta go.
Maybe a better idea would be getting some free promo. Like if you printed up a poster, like a psychedelic looking poster, and you said, I'll make you a deal. I'll give you this poster free to hang up. Maybe it's even in a frame or whatever, but it's presentable. And then you say, and it's got the little link or the little barcode on it, where people can get more information. Maybe that's a good way to, get your name out there with, 99% of stoners that will never buy a comic, and then the 1% that do, that make it worthwhile.
I've always had this like fantasy in a sense, but making large formatted art that then is placed in a, let's say, gallery situation.
Coffee shops too, yeah.
Yeah, but then at the entrance or at the desk, you have stacks of your books. so that there's this kind of reflective,
Oh, yeah.
it's not like merchandise or anything, but it's like, I can see you and I at some point, once time is relevant outside of our just Sundays getting together, that, we do large format art, like 18 by 24 size, full color, turbo, quote unquote, pages that could be submitted to group shows, because there is a shit ton of art galleries that do lowbrow, like Robert Williams, the whole,
Yeah.
what do they also call it? It's high fructose.
Outsider art.
It's yeah, maybe a little bit of that, but man, the dude, there's a Arch Enemy is up in Philadelphia, and I've been there a couple times. They do a open call for a group show every year, and I have it on my calendar. I think it's November is when the submission comes. February is the show or something. But people I follow, like Ryan Haska, who does. I reviewed one of his comics, which was that hot pink and black, like retro, and it was the girls. I'm trying to remember what that was called, but he's always in the show. And anyhow, there are ways of, let's say, distributing yourself, but I think it's thinking outside of like mail-in advertising, distribution type networking. I think it's way more about the thing. One of the things I'm playing with as an idea, and I have reached out to a couple of people. Now, I am carrying a lot of sword and sorcery books. Definitely Jamie Barrows, project lead on Brutal Braid of Crumb, and Blood Maidens. And then there's a couple of people in there that I have picked up books of theirs, and I keep in the shop on cromthebarbarian.com and the other comics category, which are obviously not Crom related. And it's because A, I love their art. B, when one of my things is like, if I'm going to buy the comic, I might as well buy 3 copies, because 2 I could put in the store, or 2 I can bring, or whatever back stock's left, I can bring to the show. So one of the things that I would like to do is have a couple copies, like 2 or 3 copies from indie creators that, we're in cahoots with, if you will. We're in the same camp, and be able to be able to stretch that, lifeline into at East Coast or SPX and IC3, who people, they can't make it. But I have to be careful because, I have a an Equinox that can carry only so many books, and I only want to carry so many things in and out of place. You know what I mean? So I have to be a little weary, but I keep coming back to wanting to support and help create a destination, at least for these 2 shows. And then, like I said, I think you and I need to strongly start looking at the possibility of doing Heroes Con, as like a larger destination, if not, some of these other IC3 events that, Kazra, Matt, and Comic Art Fan is putting together.
Yeah, so I think Heroes Con is in June every year. Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's easier for me when I'm off of school, but it is kind of winding down the school year. I usually finish around June 26th, so I mean, I have weekdays off after that, which is great. But I heard it was good this year. People
I hear it's good every year. I just hear everybody and they say, they've convinced me that it is all comics. The show is very strict about making it about comic book destination. Now, this doesn't mean indie per se. It's everybody from Frank Miller down. You're gonna have the opportunity to go and get whatever you're gonna go and get there. But I feel like if we're going to do this for the rest of our lives, get to the 6 issues of Turbo Pit Fighter every Sunday for 3 hours, but want to also keep growing and expanding our connections with people, that could be the place that we kind of call like a home base type of thing, or maybe not. I don't know. We can always explore.
Well, one thing that I hear at IC3 Drink and Draws, which
Yeah.
I've been to 3 of them now.
Yeah.
Is especially when somebody like has a couple of drinks in them. Oh, I don't care about making money. I just want to do comics the rest of my life. If I can, keep it just like, breaking even or whatever, or, whatever, I would be happy.
Yep.
You just hear that over and over and over,
Yep.
right? Because the comic people are the creatives, and these are the people that have had it with the fucking, corporate world that we're in, and everything. So,
Yep.
it's like people that say, all right, you have a waitress that's in a band, or maybe she's an actress and she goes on auditions or something. You have all these creatives out there that are yearning to just do their art, whatever art form they're on, and support their habit. And comics, makes a little bit of money for the average person sitting at a table at an indie con, probably has a day job and supports himself. Maybe they lose a little money, but they make a little money. Like, it's all this stuff in between. Every once in a while, somebody goes crazy and they have some property that ends up being semi-successful, and they like make the leap, to like full time or something. Or you have somebody like me that's a couple years away from retirement, and I'm just eyeing, the whole idea. But it does need to, sustain itself. And unless you're a trust fund kid, that says, all right, I'm going to like, I don't care if I lose $100,000 a year. I'm going to make the best comics anyone's ever seen. I mean, there is plenty of cases of that, happening out there, right? I mean, the Heavy Metal movie was a gigantic loss. The Heavy Metal 2, a gigantic loss, but it's great art. It's fun. It's cult stuff. You're reaching your people. You're reaching your tribe, and that is apparently more valuable to a lot of the people in the game that than making money. We all do things to make money that we may or may not love.
So here's a little change in conversation. This is where my art nerd really flies off the handle, and I'm saying this all with all sincerity. You've done an amazing job on the unboxing of your Pro White Malady and our Doom mags, on your Substack. I just want to say I am thrilled / impressed / proud to have my name and the association to the level of craft that those books are showing. Like, I'm going to put you on full screen. Can you flip through a little bit on the Doom mags, Jake? Because I just can't wait to get my copy.
I don't know. I would love to do a indie exchange with some of our regulars. Yeah. Because well, Kurt, it's funny we work together so well because we're such different people. Um, I all I see is what's wrong. That's all I see. I'm I mean, I'm very, very unkind to myself, but because I always feel like I'm improving and striving and all that. So it's hard for me to sit down and like, and I'm also not like the biggest like self promoter. So I have to learn like, you sometimes you just have to toot your own horn. No one else is gonna do it for you. Um, I mean, so I'll try to just go over like the stuff that I like. But you know, like we've been through a lot with this, and because we made a lot of like mistakes, or or let's say we had a big learning curve with this, like from the formatting of the pages, and we had to resize, and and then like we're putting together the zine pages and all that, and we're like, oh wow, we're missing some pages. Oh no, we're not missing some pages. Like all the stuff that we right. But I mean, it's kind of nice that that I printed this on such heavy paper. I'm not going to do it again, but it's kind of a nice thing, and it'll probably stay in good condition because of that. Um, here's what I think is good. As soon as you open this up, you have this page here with all this text. Let me try and center this. Right, you have this page here with all this text, and you're asking people to read. Right? Now, some people might not read. Fine, you just go straight to this. And you're looking at all this and you're trying to make heads or tails of it. Right? But if you read this, you get a lot more for your buck because it says right real big at the top, I was rescued by the casualties by Charvel Vore. Now, you don't know if that's a real person or a character or anything, so you just start reading. And the first line says, I was never what you might call normal, being so tall for my age. I was 6'5" at age 16, and I'm 6'8" now. Oldest of 7, I was always the center of the family, and then being a basketball star, I got even more attention. But things were still relatively normal for our family in Niles, Michigan, or so I thought. Right? So now you're talking in somebody's voice, and then it gets crazier and crazier when you read. I mean, I could read the whole thing, but basically, this teenager who introduces herself is she's in the future, and she talks about the great divestiture of 2097 being in the past. So she's in the year 2020 2213. So in 2213, at age 17, I applied to compete in the 2216 Olympics, submitting a blood sample to the committee. That's when my qDNA markers were found. We don't know who had accessed my blood work, but the first abduction attempt happened a week later. Like a lot of college athletes, I received offers from wrestling leagues, not a legitimate sport. It was narrative entertainment that had devolved steadily since performing-enhancing drugs were deregulated. So this is going to tie into the Duke a little bit. This is going to tie into different aspects of the world. But she goes, I was resigned to get a day job and just be the tall girl in some human workplace when the call came in from former Michigan State star Petra Petrovich, Or so I thought. I learned later it was Bianca Moroder using a robo-manipulated voice. My mother insisted she do the talking as my manager. You could see the dollar signs in her eyes. She was persuaded to arrange a flight to Budapest for us and my sisters. So they were getting um, recruited to a Hungarian basketball league that didn't exist. They were just trying to abduct her. Then he goes into she's on the flight on the way with her sisters to this non-existent thing. They were just going to get abducted at the airport, and she gets a call on the plane from Esoterra, who's like this famous person. I can't believe it's really her. She is the fabled person, the first person that has powers to manipulate mass and energy, and she's calling me. How do I know it's really her? She made my phone levitate, right? All this stuff. And then she says, you're in immediate danger. You need to escape from this plane as soon as it lands. There's people coming to abduct you. We're on our way, but we won't be there for an hour. Like, all this stuff is in here, right? And it all sets up this scene where they're trapped in the airport bathroom, and Charvel has to break a mirror and get a piece, of like a weapon to shank some guy just to waste some time. Now, Ken Landgraf drew her, in his style, and all the thugs and everything look like, how he imagined them. But here we're meeting Dr. Marauder, and here we're meeting Bianca, and here we're seeing, like, some of this will come through. Like, if you read all this, like, some of this will come through as, all right, it makes sense. Like, I understand what's going on. I'm a little bit more invested. If not, well, you're just going to see all this, and just people just look at art and they glaze. They just do what they're going to do. But we tried to make all of the the dialogue make sense and follow a narrative. For this 6-pager, which ends up in a robot busting through the wall. You're introducing Esoterra, Hellclaw, and Cremita. First time in print anywhere. Except for Funk Mag. Here is Hellclaw, here is Cromita, and then here's Esoterra. So this is all I wanted the 6-pager to do. I was really happy with this. Then we get into like some of Esoterra's abilities and how mystical it is and all that. And then this kind of goes quick. This is kind of confusing to end it because the way Ken translates stuff, from words into pictures, and then maybe I was like really condensing stuff, but like her mom jumps in the way of a ray and dies. She's supposed to be cradled in her arms, but we weren't able to do that, so I just try to add the dialogue, later on to try to explain. Hopefully the people don't get too confused, trying to make heads or tails of that. But that's all the fun of making comics, is like, you're working with artists, it's translating. So we have the 6-pager for the casualties. Then we have this Turbo Pin, which introduces Turbo Pit Fighter, pages 13 to 20, and it says continues from Turbo Teaser number 2. So this will be starts here, right? And this is Turbo pages. I'm looking at these, at least the way this printed from my printer, on this paper, and the way I leveled, the files before I gave it to them, is this looks a little bit murky gray to me. These spreads. Like this one, not so much. This one, a little bit. And I also noticed on the Ken Landgraf, like there's a black here where you can see kind of like, sometimes Savage Sword of Conan, you can see like the black is not a rich black, right? Like this is all supposed to be just dark jet black, but you can see the strokes because the printing was sensitive, and the file I gave to them had 80%, 90%, like all this stuff going on. So, on the one hand, you don't want that to be visible when everything's just a spot black. On the other hand, you want it to be visible when it's like build up shading, and you want it to be, you want to show the variable, shading, depths. So maybe you want it to be a little bit less than black, right? Like here, for example, right? But those are all. This is all on me, right? I should have, gone over that. I should have made a spot black. You really need a printed copy in your hand to see, and that's why they used to do like printed proofs first. But right, that was shipping. That's going to be $60 with shipping. Oh, 44 bucks. Right. I mean, that's not bad. That's not bad. If you're doing a run of like 500. Right. Oh, yeah. I found another possible printer that's cheaper too. We have to investigate this stuff. I'll go. Um, where did I see it now? I saw it. I think I might have seen it in. I in like, I think I found it maybe through a Kickstarter or something that I was looking at. Or I don't. Anyway, I have it bookmarked somewhere. I'll come across it, and I'll yeah, and I'll also put it on Do Mags and all everything. But yeah, I mean, we could very easily just like, bring down the low tones and bring up the blacks. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do. But just going forward, I just as I've already said, like, avoid the 40, 50, 60% gray tones. Like, try to make it like lighter tones, or else black and white, like high contrast. And I think that works when we do that, in a good balance. But every page is so different, right? So and every spread is so different, right? Like here, to me it doesn't seem so muddy, murky gray. But I still do want to take like all my 40% grays, and I want to make them more like 30% grays. Like, I just want to have like, from zero to 30, and then and then like high contrast. I think. I don't know. That's just my taste, and this spread I love, right? And there's a lot here going on between Turbo and Trophy. So this is gonna run in Turbo #1 just like this. But this whole teaser thing that we're doing, basically we decided that instead of putting out Turbo teaser and just making it longer, that we're going to put out an anthology, right? Here's Turbo teaser #2. That we're just going to make it an anthology and include all these other stories. So that's what we did. And so this side right here looks very, very murky to me. And I'm going to be, and I already desaturated, but it's just like really, really mid-tone gray here. And so I want to play with that, before I, get this printed. We definitely got to bring the black out and make the black blacker, but it's cool, the way it kind of like mixes it. Like, you have some black here, but then not, some of these outlines are not black. I mean, I love that, kind of, look to it. But like, I think you really have to look carefully. Like, some of the stuff it's in darkness. It's in gray darkness, and you don't see it. You don't see it. So we're gonna bring all that out. After the Turbo, we have this intro page, and we're also asking people to read, and that's gonna set up this 11-pager. If you read this, it makes a lot more sense. Who the hell is the Duke? So we have Remember the Duke. And Kurt, you might notice that this is not my handwriting here. Not exactly. What I did for this little title graphic here is I did a pencil sketch on a big piece of paper. It said Remember the Duke. And then I got one of my students, who is a 11-year-old or 10 or 11-year-old girl from Yemen, who wears like a head wrap and everything. She did this. I gave her $1, and I was like, "This is going to be printed in a book." And she was like, "No, it's not." I'm like, "Yes." And I gave her another one to do too, but I don't. I forget what the other one was. I'll be using it, in the future. But I love doing that. That's kind of like the whole idea behind Pearl White Malady is to collaborate with kids. So I was able to use that a little bit here, and then we're asking people just read like a little paragraph now, right? We're not asking you to read a whole page, just a little paragraph here, and then you get to here you have a headline, then you get to here you have an illustration. So it's like bribery, and you're like, well, can you stand reading for like 2 seconds? You know, oh, I imagine 90. Yeah. Um, yeah, so this is like the lead-in page, right? And so we have the Secret Chronicles of the Duke, and so we say it here, we say it here, we say it here. Who this is? We're really trying to say, all right, this is the character, this is the person. Then we're off and running, and so this is another thing where we had a very weird, workflow. Like Alex provided inked pages, but they were very, very like black and white line art. So Kurt goes in and he adds all of these backgrounds, all these tones. It's kind of like I wrote inks and tones, but it's really like re-inking and adding a lot more to the page, right? Um, so my critique of myself is that I was like, oh, this is great. We're going to take an action sequence, right? Because that's what Alex picked. He was like, he goes, I want to draw the part where Duke is in the tunnels and he's doing assassinations and all that. So I took it upon myself to say, all right, we're going to script that, so that's what he's seeing in each panel is he's going through these tunnels. But then I maybe was a little bit too ambitious in putting all of this dialogue that's going on inside of Duke's earpiece. And I'm taking responsibility for that because it might be a little bit too much, like backstory during this action sequence. Because like I was like, oh, I know, I can intersperse the action scenes with talking about the stuff that's going on, with his contingent right here. Like this is his whole entourage. You got the Mink, you have the drone smith, and you have his brother Renzo, and they're all in his earpiece, and we established that right here. But then, like the stuff that they're talking about, I need to like make it maybe like 70% of what I did because like it's just too extra. Like especially when you get to like this page right here, right? It's like it barely even fits like it's up here, and then you get down to here. I think that you guys did a great job on like these dramatic panels, and stuff that's happening. But I think it's kind of inconsistent. Like you start out with like this and this. This is all like kind of on the same page, and then it kind of like gets a little more shorthandy, a little more cartoony, and a little more sparse, right? And everything's like so packed in here, right? So I don't know. Maybe it has like a different feeling. Like, this is a sky rider, and you're in this big open sky. And this like missile is being shot from this robot's eye. You know, but then it gets a little more packed in. Like, I think when we're in the tunnels, it really is like claustrophobic and like dark, and a lot of detail. It's kind of overwhelming. So maybe that's a good thing, like to create that feeling. But the Duke is going through all this stuff, and then the drone smith is killed, the distraction is unleashed, and then the distraction is unleashed on the big city. And this is the last cliffhanger here. The Duke also finds out that his wife's kid sister is being held at gunpoint by her own grandmother. So all this crazy stuff. And then here we have like I was glad to like fill this page up because it has all of these buildings, but what it was really supposed to be was like this giant battle with this like firefight in this dense city, futuristic city. And since the art came back and was really just centering the automaton, then I put all this word balloon stuff all around because I didn't know how I was going to fit it anyway. But it explains what's going on the TV, like from the announcer, the TV announcer, and you see like the fake Duke is in here. So we just try to explain all that. So it was really fun to work with Alex on this, and I can't wait to see if we're going to pick this up for number two, if he's going to get back into doing the art again. Maybe we could change the process a little, for all the mistakes we made, like we gave him the wrong size, all that kind of stuff. And but it would be great to to end this, whether it's a 6-pager or he wants to do another 10-pager, that turned into an 11-pager, whatever he wants to do, it's fine with me. Fine with me. It was a lot of fun, and we should definitely get back to that. So, next we have this 2-pager that Kurt and I ran in Alex's funk zine. I love the way these pages came out. The whole spread. This is what I'm talking about. Like, we had more control here of the tones to make them lighter, and we have these really rich black and white kind of like interplay panels, and Cromita is a design for that. Like, her whole design of her is just to be shiny chrome, so that you get all these like Kirby designs in there, right? And we're gonna have a lot of fun with that. I can't wait to do Cromita number 1. And you might have, I don't know if you saw, but I was finishing up a sketch of Cromita at the drink and draw, and I think you know what I think, Cromita could be really fun if we do a Cromita number 1 ever, to do it as a duotone with the light blue, So if we do that, all the pages will be like her, like this. But then we also have to think of a bad guy or a girl that also has some blue interplay with black and white, right? And that'll be really fun. The duotone? funny thing about duotones is you do see, there's this Red Sonja comic called Black, White, Red, I think.
Yeah.
And I think Batman has done it. I mean, it's been tried. Sometimes I find an indie that I do on a flip through, and it'll be that. I think I showed this kind of like slice of life one that the art was really nice and it was all duotone. The funny thing is that the reason why duotone was a thing is because it was cheaper to have a black plate and a spot color plate.
And a spot color plate, yep.
Than it was to do full color, because that was, four plates.
Right.
And nowadays, the irony is that if you do a duotone, you're probably going to pay full color prices.
No, you will.
Yeah, that shouldn't be, right? And they're not. I mean, the way everything's set up now, digital presses and whatever. Yeah. But if you are printing, let's say like, oh, Cremita was so popular, Kurt, they can't get enough. We have 1,000 pre-orders. So now you could go to offset, and now it actually would be cheaper than full color if they were doing a spot plate on offset, and a black plate, and they still do that all day, every day.
Yeah.
In a real print press environment, even if it's digital presses, they still, we only have to load the cyan cartridge or whatever. So so we can still be creative, but you have to remember kind of like the history of this and why that that style of comic printing and art printing has been around, because it's been around. I mean, people might remember like Bazooka Joe cartoons when you get a piece of gum.
Yeah.
And they would sometimes cheap out and have like only, black and red. Oh, okay, I lost your preview for a second. All through history, you would have all of this like cheaper printing, whether it's a label, like T-shirts, like only 2 colors, right? It's cheaper. So that became kind of like an art form to itself. And when you're invoking the nostalgia of the duotone idea, you might even want to put it out of register on purpose, right? Stuff like that. You have people do, which means, instead of the colored part being inside the black holding lines, it'll be a little bit off, because they want to make it look like it's like a Bazooka Joe, cartoon that printed on a web press, like 10,000 up, and it was cut into, a little piece of paper that you fold up and put in your bubble gum, like, crazy stuff. The bullet points and the whole like back matter page. So this is really just about the sentience, has nothing to do with Doom magazines. But here we just say, welcome to Doom magazine number 1, featuring Turbo Pit Fighter and premiering the Secret Chronicles of the Duke. Then it's the Casualties, featuring Esoteric Hellclaw and Cremita in 2185, determined to protect genetically unique teens from the ruthless pursuit of Dr. Bruno Marauder, demented Q physicist turned televangelist, along with his devious dart-wielding partner Bianca, abducting the glowers for experimental Q mutation breeding in league with their multi-billionaire D. Huberton Paymaster. Right? So I think that whole thing is just too simple. It's a definite run-on, but I did that on purpose.
Yeah.
We present here our latest update to the End of the World timeline, a turbulent sci-fi chronicle of comics, illustrated text, and original art, debuting new characters and stories, and documenting the creative process in our weekly live streams at doomag.com. We love talking sci-fi as we create stories, but the future is as we can imagine it. In 2176, the D. Huberton-controlled states and cities will no longer recognize U.S. Gov, nor centuries of laws and social order, all the while tampering with human gene tech. The D. Hubertons leverage their persuasive pledge bots to help recruit an all-human mercenary militia known as the RM, who will fight alongside an even larger mechanized combat force. Who, you ask, could ever hope to stand up to this unyielding fascist takeover of society? Presenting the latest update of our ... end of the world timeline. And now we're into the bullet points. So we have the casualties featuring Esoteric Hellclaw and Cremita, the Secret Chronicles of the Dude. Check, those are literally in this book. Cursing Her Creation, the Giantess, Hawkwind. So going back to the last Turbo teaser, we called that something different. We called that like the giantesses, the chronomorph giantesses or something. We're restating that now. Here, I got it right here. We called that last time Arrival of the Chronomorph Giantesses. Chronomorph is a word I just made up, and I figure, we're still going to use it. It means something. It must be in my notes somewhere. But we changed that to Cursing Her Creation, the Giantess Hawkwind. So now we're going to be... So here, we just kind of like... We're placeholdering it, right? I call it flooding the throne, but we're just flooding the page bullshit, basically, right? Fake it till you make it, right? And we did that. So we said we want to do something with giantesses, and I have these tall characters, and Charvel is tall, and they're going to take her genes and they're going to like splice them, so they're going to create Hawkwind, and so she's going to be kind of like our Frankenstein storyline, and it's developing. I have plenty of prose on that, and I have got to be 7 pinups at this point, and some of them are just pencil, but whatever. Next, Shankra versus the Pleasure Bots, full-scale gender war. That used to say, we didn't even mention Shankra before, but we did mention, Broken Family, the rise of the Pleasure Bots, right? So that now is also just, I don't know, it has to be 20 pages of text, 10, 20 pages of text on all that. That's on hellclaw.com/pbot. And, it's all our drafts and our notes and all of our fiction and, just keeping it all organized and everything. But we have some sketches and pinups of Shankra, and we have some pleasure bots. I mean, that Cremita, this piece was originally supposed to be a pleasure bot leaning on sitting on a couch, waiting for the owner to service her or whatever, like make hanky panky. But when I was at the drinking draw, I said, you know what? This is looking a little bit like Cremita. And so I put her in a parking lot, in a garage here, where she's confronting somebody, and I made it a Cremita pin with the headline up here. So the pleasure bots is going to be so fun to draw because it's just total cheesecake, but they're all robots. So you remember I think his name was Hajime Sorayama.
Yep.
Remember the airbrush artist?
Yeah.
Is that the right name? Yeah.
Yeah. Sorayama.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, he has all these pinup books of these chrome female tantalizing robots. So that's the whole elevator pitch. We go to an artist and we say, hey, do you want to do the insides of Cremita #1? It's all Hajime Sorayama, this character. I mean, you could say that with Cremita #1, or you could say it with Shankra versus the P-Bots, because the P-Bots are all just chromatized or stylized. And so, there you're just thinking of an aesthetic, and you're just creating a whole story just to make it an excuse to draw shiny, chrome bots and everything, right?
Sexy.
So then we go to Resistance Cults featuring the Tuesday Movement. We didn't have any mention of that before. Oh yeah, we had a bullet. Descent into Cultism, the Tuesday Movement. So that's just basically going to be text only, and we have a lot of that written already, and always writing for that tab. I love writing for that tab because Kurt, you got to see the way that tab is coming along. We have all these mentions of all these side cults. You know, like I told you about the Capricorn cult, right? And you know, there's going to be all these numerology cults. You know, like there could be, because Tuesday is like basically an umbrella for all the cults that come from the Tuesday movement, which is like looking at the number two and looking at duality and looking at, you know, multiple, you know, the whole idea of multiplying and splitting into two, right? And then there's this like decades and decades of all these other like sub cults that come up, and I started like, some of them are occult cults, and some of them are biker cults, and some of them are you know, numerology. Some, and then the Capricorn one is like, you have to be a Capricorn, otherwise you're ostracized from their community, because they're like, they believe it's so spiritually important, you know, to be a Capricorn, stuff like that. So one day we'll haul off and just do a segment on each of these things where we could really dive in. And you know, I even sometimes just get AI to read the Hellclaw tab when I'm doing the solo Substack later. So I might do that. Next we have the Sentient Dome, Dawn of Longevity in the New Reality. We used to call that the Sentience, Slow Birth of Longevity. But same thing is going on. I have so much extra writing since we last spoke about the Sentience. It's on a tab. It's hellclaw.com/sentience. And it's really, really coming around. So I want to like show this to you, and maybe, you know, some of our, you know, potential, you know, collaborators or our current collaborators, and just go over all these different ideas. The Sentience will not be comic sequences. But I want everybody to know that this is like a thread running through this whole world, that there's people living to, you know, age 200, let's say 150 or 200. 150 is probably like the median, but like 200 is probably like, you know, the upper limit. And that is going to affect society. And then we can also talk about how that's happening in real life today, you know, and that Larry Ellison, the billionaire, is literally, you know, trying to like investigate longevity so that he can be like the first, you know, whatever. Actually happening. All right. Next bullet is World in Ruin, the ironic saga of Elevated 2222. So we had, that's verbatim how it was. That was our last bullet last time. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bullets last time. And this time we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 bullets this time. So we added 5 bullets. The bullets that we added: Reen Paws Farm, Weeloo, and the SOT Votees. Why are we plugging that? Because it's already a full script, free script for anybody. We need to make an ad for that and put a sign out like free script. Somebody come along and do this. Then we have the Rectifiers, Elevena's Enhanced Super Squadron. This is the first mention of them anywhere. The Company Man, featuring Pitch Blend. So Pitch Blend is one of the 5 Rectifiers. And the Rectifiers will not be a series where they're all appearing together like the Avengers or the Defenders or the Champions or the Justice League or any of that. Like, some of those comics really get to me because it's a certain type of artist that can sit there and draw 5 superheroes in every single panel over and over. And then you get to the splash page and it's 12 superheroes. You're like, that's something that George Perez really does well. I mean, John Byrne did it really well. You know, all the great names of all the people. John Buscema could do it fine. You know, he did Avengers, Gil Kane, all those guys. But like, Gil Kane maybe is somebody that strikes me like, I don't want to do a group comic book, superhero group comic, because you're drawing so many capes over and over and over. I just want to concentrate on, you know, action and characters and story and stuff, you know. And it, you know, it's something that really, it's funny to see on indie comics when you see all these low budget, you know, imitation superhero group comics and how they just flail around with it because nobody knows how to do it well, you know. except Jack Kirby. That's the only one. I picked up. So I got to show you a pickup while we're on this, and I'm just kind of teasing here, but this.
Oh yeah.
Do you have it?
No, I watched your video. I actually reposted your Substack, North Carolina haul, and I found that cover, and I used that as the what do you call it? The title card, because Tim Tyler needs more props. I mean, that thing.
Yeah.
I'm definitely getting a copy of that.
You know what? I really think it's fun to look at the way like AC Comics would sometimes handle the team thing, because in the 70s all the way through like the 90s, everybody just wanted to be like the X-Men, and all those Image comics, they were a lot of them were teams, right? And like Youngblood was a team, and Jim Lee had the the Wildcats?
Yeah.
Right? Everybody wanted to make a team because you could show like, the big concrete guy in the background and the hot.
Well, they also were the artists on those books that had revived them into the 90s, or late 80s into the 90s, that people identified them with. So if they were going to abandon and leave the Marvel paycheck, they had to make it lateral enough that people would be like, oh shit, cool. They're doing their own X-Men. I'll definitely support them.
Well, the reason I say this is because Casualties is a team. And, I would be happy if Casualties is only just a 6-pager in Doom magazines, and then eventually the 6-pagers are collated into the, a number one. That would be great. If anybody out there is into teams, it has to be done, a really interesting way. Innovation. So this is another one I picked up. Innovation had the Hero Alliance, and this is number 10. I think they went way higher than that. They might have been up to like 15. I think I have number 15. And it was just indie comics doing superhero teams, trying to be like the X-Men, or trying to be, maybe different. They're black and white insides. This is Tim Tyler, and he says right here, this is like some of his earliest work for Fathom Press, as far as I know. And it's 1992, and he's saying he's always wanted to make a team book. Look, you're holding in your hands Fathom's first team book. The Dead Crew is something that's been floating around my mind for a while. I've always loved monsters, zombies, and the undead being my favorites. In the 70s, I collected famous monsters of Filmland, always trying to find any new Godzilla stills, blah, blah, blah. So basically he just makes a team of monster people. And this is probably a cool little idea at the time. I mean, this is a great book. We're gonna go over this, man. Great.
Yeah, I need to get a copy, because I want both of us to go through it at the same time.
Well, the thing is, folks, this kind of stuff you can find in dollar bins, but you have to be willing to spend 2 hours going through boxes and boxes to get to stuff like that. I mean, I have some real crazy pickups from North Carolina. When I was driving back, I stopped at a comic store. So stay tuned for that. I don't know if we could do that today, but
now we're finishing up.
Yep, stay tuned for that. Yeah, let's finish up. So we have the Rectifiers. Then we have the Company Man featuring Pitch Blend, and we've already announced that that is a 6-pager that is already penciled and inked, waiting for word balloons and or tones. Maybe Kurt wants to do tones on it. Maybe I'll want to do tones on it. I don't know. I actually bought the original art so that I could draw right on it without having to worry about, any feelings or anything like that. So that's the Company Man featuring Pitch Blend, and we were happy to have young Sebastian do the pencils and inks on that, and I can't wait to go over that with you, Kurt.
Yep.
Live on air one day. when we go over our kung fu story and everything. All right, Charvel and the Reality Cleaver. So she is a new bullet point, and she is also the character whose voice this whole page is, and she's also this character here, and she runs through the 6-pager here as a victim. But eventually, so we're advertising her now, Charvel and the Reality Cleaver, as its own comic. So if anybody out there is listening, you want to do a female lead, it's a solo adventure, even though Charvel is one of the rectifiers. So we have 2 of the rectifiers, of the 5 rectifiers, already have their own solo bullet points here. And so it's not really superhero stuff. It's sci-fi. It's definitely like, you know, they have like little enhancements, but they're basically like little, like Tomb Raiders. They're going out, you know, having adventures. And then the last one, Off Earth, Kill Crazy Priests in Space. So I might be a little over my skis mentioning this because all of the material I have for that is really, really old, and I haven't looked at it in a long time. But I have like all of this text that I can dump onto Substack anytime. I just have to look at it and read it for the first time in forever. So that whole storyline is really fun because, you know, you might be saying like, Jake, you're doing all this thinking about other countries and Europe and what's going to happen in this future, but what about space travel at that point, right? And that brings you into the whole alien saga where there are the corporations and they're going on to strip mine different planets, all things that I think that are going to really happen, by the way. And I don't know if you agree, but you know, space is, you know, we might not be going out there and fighting aliens with ray guns, but I think we are going to be strip mining planets. I think humankind has that in mind immediately. Plus, using the vacuum of space to run data centers, and you know, that's going to be tried very soon by one of the most visionary, eccentric, election manipulating fascists we have. No, Kurt, I think it's literally been since we last spoke that the world has the first trillionaire. I think it's literally since we last.
It's old news, man. It's old news.
No, I think this literally happened like what, a month ago,
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, no, people need to timestamp this. If you're listening to this in the year like 20,
if you're listening to this time capsule,
right now it's 2026. If you're listening to this 20 years from now, we might not even be here with you. But the last month was the first trillionaire created, and Elon Musk. And
on paper.
It's all paper.
It's all paper. It's all paper.
You know, all of those guys, you know, if they wanted to cash out, they could.
It's not going to be in trillions, though. It's not going to be, because they'd be crashing the markets. They can't.
Well, well, all right. Well, so, and for people that might not be like financially literate or whatever, or you don't give 2 shits, but Wall Street just did this IPO, right? And they took in Elon Musk's SpaceX. He was already the richest guy in the world. And he's making this big stock play because if he puts his chips on the table, he can get a lot of people to invest with him and he can take their money immediately. And so that's what happened, basically. Elon Musk did not cash out and go to the bank with, you know, with bullion, but he has the most credit of anybody in the world, and he has the most money of anybody in the world. So what happened is that he got his personal stock in Tesla and SpaceX to be rolled over into a new IPO. And I know people that bought it, just people, you know, off the street guys that read the daily news, you know, on the subway. I was hanging out in the city the other day. People went for it, and then they find out just 2 weeks later that your money went down 38%.
Yep.
So that's where we are now. Now, this isn't to say it isn't going to be the next Microsoft and it's going to 10x or 100x. if you're listening to this in 20 years, you tell me. But right now, it's an IPO where he's trying to fold all of these companies. He's trying to fold, like, Tesla and his AI company, which includes X.com, into one mega company called SpaceX. And the value that SpaceX brings is that it has this incredible satellite system called Starlink. And it's all kind of new. This is the first time Starlink becomes public, as an investment in this way. And all the stock indexes had to buy this stock in order to list the IPO on their exchange. And so they all did it. And so everybody took a bath right now. And, it wasn't even necessarily Elon that took their money. It was anybody that got in ahead of you and then got out ahead of you, right? And that's institutional day traders that are waiting for suckers like my friends, that I spoke to, that put a lot of money into it. And I don't know, you never know. Maybe I'll eat my hat later and say, you fool, everybody should have bought this stock. It's worth 100 times now. That could very well be today, tomorrow, but that's just what happened so far. And, if you're going along for a ride with Elon Musk, because it's basically all of that money is all of his companies that he's the face of. They had a rocket blow up the other day, an unmanned rocket blow up.
So we gotta wrap it up because it's 1 o'clock and I'm starving. But we need to talk about the most important thing right now, because everybody, I'm hoping, is basically having the same question that I'm having, Jake. So I'm going to kind of lead you into a possible way to purchase comic books from Jake Jacobs right now, because I do not have copies of Pearl White Malady or Doom Mags as of yet, but you do have copies. Now, I would like to suggest you can say yay or nay to it, but do you want to do the what I would refer to as the DM me and I'll invoice you through PayPal to get copies of these two comics? Or how would you like to put it out there that people can get a hold of either, if not both, of these comics?
Well, this is where I'm interested in somebody like Power Pulp, or maybe even just doing Kurt curations. Like, here's something that could be proposed. If this doesn't have a cover price, so this could be anything. But the Pearl White Malady has a cover price of $8 on it, right? If you sell the copy, all I need to get back is my investment, and it could be a wash for me. But if I can sell copies through you, it gets me to the next reprint quicker. That helps me. And then, of course, the more people have copies in their hand, it helps me. So if Kurt can sell a copy and make, all that profit, you're going from like $5.50. Yeah, it cost me $5.50, let's say, all in to because I only got 100 copies. Full color.
Pearl White Malady?
Yeah, Pearl White Malady.
Okay.
So if you can sell, and plus it's got this great, cute story about the kids and everything. And I'm not exploiting kids because I'm not making any money on Pearl White Malady. I'm taking any money and goes right back into the classroom, to help these kids do more comics.
Yeah.
So I'm fine if you want to list.
You're gonna. Okay, hold on. I'm not doing the. I list it, you ship it. You're gonna either send me the comics.
No, yeah, right.
I'll have them here, and then But I only want like 10.
Yeah, but I could send you one box for $20 that could have half of my run, and then.
No, but I don't want to carry that many. No. So how many comics? How many of the Pearl White Malady did you sell at IC3 Jacksonville?
I don't know, like 5 or 10.
Okay. So the reality check is once again, the reality check is this. You just did the famous, I paid $700 for 100 copies, or no, you paid $5 and change, $500 and change for 100 copies of a comic book, and you want to make your money back. So you put an $8 price tag on it because, the extra $2 beyond the $6, is for incidentals. The reality is there's very few people out there that are going to buy online comics one at a time. Now I do have, my launching of Ka-Blam Anthology #2, which people can put together a big bundle of books, and these books could be a part of it. But I am not warehousing comics. So if any, my cap is, but exactly. But the thing would be this, is that by the time September comes around and I might sell 5 or 6 comics, I'll have a couple comics left. We can then make our, evening out the credit there at either SPX, or maybe we should just wait till IC3 Providence. But, the reality is, you could just take orders, like I said, directly through Instagram or your email, and messaging, Instagram messaging or your email, and then invoice people, and then go from there. Or you can send me, no more than 10 copies, and then I can list them up there, and then, basically, have that limit, but at the same time, hopefully move books.
Oh, it's only okay. It's only 106. So let me just say, this is great conversations, and folks are hearing right on the air, like figuring out what to do. Kurt's got really good insights as far as promotion and like name recognition, and I think neither one of us wants to be like packing up comics.
No, I don't. I don't. Like, that's my point. I'm not gonna bring more than what I have not sold to these two shows, because you should be the one that brings them to the show.
Oh, definitely, of course. That's where I got them. Is for the next the 2 IC3s. I had already signed up for both of them before I got the comics.
Right.
And folks, if you ever want to reach out on any platform and say you want a comic, whatever, we'll just email it. No problem. But as far as like, we are at crossroads. Maybe we want to talk to retailers, because we have 3 comics, just me, and then you've got how many with Crom? You've got 4, 5, 6, and then you also have your, we don't talk about this enough, because I know we want to go. You have stuff on your website right now that you didn't make, right? Because you got some copies from Europe, right? You got that crazy Scandinavian guy, I forget his name. You have kurtbruegel.com right now, right? And you have this little corner where people can buy Crom, the latest one, the last one, right? Kurt really doesn't like Kickstarter for himself, so he has done these challenges where can I sell, as many comics as what and all that.
100 copies without Kickstarter. That's my marketing campaign with Crom's.
Right, and you've shown that it's eminently possible.
Well, the first time around, I sold 73, and then the second time around, I sold 33. And the reason I sold 33 on Ka-Blam Anthology 1 is I added 65 pages, which increased the cost from $25 to $35.
Right.
So,
and
also, and that was something I learned. And so that's that management out there. But look, right now, the only thing I want people to have is the ability to immediately get a hold of you and get comics, because then if you choose to send me no more than 10 copies of each, I can then list them on kurtbruegel.com, kromthebarbarian.com, and then you can, then I can sell from there. But the whole idea is to give some kind of ease for people to get a hold of the books. I just don't believe in the I printed 100 copies, I'll send you 50 of them and you could sell them for me theory, because I'm not. It's not going to happen. In a relative time, like I said, till we get to SPX. I don't have any magic quote unquote formula. I do have I believe it's a very comparable promotional thing. If I was to do a Kickstarter, I would do the exact same kind of promotion, which is I need to sell 100, or I want to help me sell 100. I'm just tacking on the end by saying, hey, help me get to 100 without a Kickstarter, because the book is already done. As soon as you make the order, as soon as you place the order, I put the order into Lulu, and Lulu prints it in 7 days and ships it by 10 days, anywhere in the world. So that's a huge thing for me.
So I'm just putting a note to ourselves.
Okay.
I'm putting it in the chat, and it's like discussion of selling to comics to fans versus retailers versus distributors. And now I want
there is no distributors. There's no distributors.
Versus Whatnot, eBay. What'd you say? Lulu they're one of the drop shippers.
That's my primary drop shipper.
Yeah, right. But Mix'em can do that also. You're saying, right?
Within reason. They're not international. I think it's Canada, England, Ireland, Spain, or something like that, as well as the United States. And they might have added something from there, but I'm not interested in Mix'em really anymore.
Versus Whatnot, eBay versus Mix'em that Mix'em is just the idea of using the printer, who might have
because Ka-Blam does the same thing, where you can post your comic, and people can buy directly from Ka-Blam, and you just get your profit margin off of that, and they print it and ship it. So Lulu has the same thing. Mix'em has the same thing. So
okay, Lulu. Oops. Right. I think printers are catching on that they can also be a print on demand, and make a profit. I think it depends, what you're selling something for, and then it becomes a question like what's printed on there too. So I don't know if there's like if there's ever a conflict of interest, but like business-wise, if a printer wanted to print copies that were going out to customers, they could conceivably change anything without the knowledge or with the knowledge. But, from minute to minute, they can change the price that's printed on the cover. If they were getting 10 orders a day, maybe they can raise the price without even, telling them.
That doesn't make any sense.
Well, it would be criminal, but
it's not even criminal. It doesn't make any sense, because once again, the conversation is outstanding in the way that there is no indie comic distribution channel other than Power Pulps, but those guys are at the brim of their capacity now. So they're not a warehouse. They don't have employees. They only ship every Sunday to Monday. They pack it on Sunday, they ship it on a Monday. God bless them in every form of what they're going through and dealing with in order to make this happen. God bless them. But they're going to hit rocky road because everybody's now talking about, I'll sell my comic through PowerPoint, which you're not. You have to submit. It's every 3 months. They go through what your submissions are. And if you get accepted, they contact you. If you don't get accepted, I don't think they contact you because they don't have the time. They've got families, they've got jobs, they've got comics of their own that they want to work, and then they have given themselves this place out in the world to distribute a family type of situation of people that they want to promote, as a distribution. But there is, other than that, there is no distributor of indie comics. So the real point of the conversation, which, like I said, I need to wrap this up because I'm starving to death, is you have to take the responsibility of making it very easy for somebody to get a hold of your book on a website. And like I said, I believe your website because Kickstarter or any of these crowdfunders are very shitty, as the last time I checked, in being quote unquote a store to be able to sell. Now things have changed and I'm sure things goes up, but you're in a position right now that you're sitting on less than 100 copies of like Pro Line Malady. We're doing all of this talk and promotion and showing off. There's nothing stopping anybody to go, oh, wow, I want to get a copy of that. How do I? And it needs to be made as easy and financially responsible as possible.
All right. And the last reminder, so look at all those comments. And then the last reminder is let's share screen of doommags.com and we'll see what's there now and what we have to change, because I got to do all this before school starts and I'm down. So great conversation with Kurt.
Cool.
And just to wrap things up, be sure to check out our other episodes. We're on YouTube under Making Turbo Pit Fighter. We've been doing this for a while. You could also go to doommags.com and get the link where you could binge all episodes. You could see our other tabs, which are Indie Creator Exchange and the flip throughs, where we call it the comics that influence. Unfortunately, we didn't get to today, but we're going to be showing. We're going to definitely do an episode next time. We're going to have a guest next time, so this is going to be amazing.
It'll be Alex Turbin. Alex Turbin will be joining us next, the second half of next week, so around 11:30.
Kurt said I can do pencils for Turbo for a couple of episodes before we have to get into all the lettering, because we're already behind on our lettering. But Kurt is he's a benevolent ruler sometimes. So see you guys next Sunday, 10 a.m. ish Eastern. Sometimes we come on a couple minutes late, and today I showed a lot of original art. If anybody has any offers on any of the pieces, I'm still finishing a lot of them. Just let me know what you want on there. But that's what we got. We got Doom Mags, End of the World timeline art, all these characters, Flood in the Zone, and I hope you got a good taste of it this episode. See you guys next time. Kurt on the outs.
Yep. I'll see you next Sunday, Jake.
Peace in the Mideast and